Minutes starts now.
We'll go to Fox News in just a moment. Please continue.
There's not any one or two things. There are a handful of major things, and the ability to really roll up your sleeves and make a difference, and understand that you're only limited by your own initiative. And I've taken that approach, and I'm really going to miss the challenges.
If you could take 1 minute overtime, this is somebody actually has done our program when he was the lone congressman from Montana, my twin brother, who you know. He was with Ryan Zinke in Montana when he was the congressman there. And now, of course, we know that I think he's done a terrific job in his position of Secretary of the Interior. You know him well. You worked with him. I know that you are adamantly opposed to this offshore drilling issue. In about a minute, because I do need to get to that news break, what can you say about this topic?
Well, I do know Ryan Zinke through the Armed Services Committee and his extraordinary service as Special Forces and Navy SEAL trainer. I had the opportunity to meet with him last week, first personally and then in a group, and he outlined for me very emphatically that the three things necessary to be considered to stay on this list, first of all, that there are oil reserves, which he pointed out that once you get above Georgia, there aren't any oil reserves on the East Coast. So he said New Jersey has got from their perspective, it's a check mark against us that way. The second thing is, and it's major, there's no onshore infrastructure. So if you were to find a gallon of oil out there and you're going to bring it onshore, what are you going to do with it? So the oil companies are not going to build a refinery. They're going to go where they have onshore opportunities or tremendous resources offshore. And the third thing is there's united bipartisan opposition, Republicans, Democrats, governor, congressional delegation. And when you put all three of those together, he would not give a green light to remove us from the list last week when I met with him, but he gave me every indication that there's nothing to believe that they're going to try to move forward when they don't have any of the things they're looking for.
Great to visit with you, Congressman. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Chuck Malamut is next.
Hiring. Post a job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed.
I wasn't so sure about getting on eHarmony, but my brother said, hey, I met my wife on eHarmony. Just give it a shot.
I was nervous about joining eHarmony too, at first.
eHarmony has found a way to bring people together who are right for each other and ready to find something real.
They got us talking, and then we realized we were meant for each other.
When I'm with her, I'm happy.
Aw.
For a limited time, get a free month included when you buy a 3-month plan. Use code READY. eHarmony.com. Use code READY.
Still recovering from Friday's nor'easter, and here comes number 2. For much of North Jersey, a foot of snow is possible, but it still looks to be just rain along the coast and the possibility of minor flooding. This starts tonight and into tomorrow morning. In Cherry Hill, site of that massive student protest last week over school security, township police are now assigned full-time to patrol the schools, and the school board is talking about school security officers being allowed to carry guns in school buildings. A bipartisan group of state senators is advocating a change in New Jersey's tax code that could help small businesses and partnerships retain federal tax deductions on billions in income. Senator Anthony Bucco says businesses face enough in taxes and regulation already.
We are trying to make sure that our businesses stay here so that we have jobs for our citizens.
The plan would allow small business owners and partners to avoid a new $10,000 cap on state and local tax deductions by having LLCs, partnerships, and S corporations. I'm Eric Scott, and this is the Town Square News Network.
Hey, it's meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Did you have your house for sale last year and it just didn't sell? Call Robert Dukansky of RE/MAX First Advantage. Nothing can be more stressful than needing to sell your home than just watch it sit for 6 months or more. Henry and Ann went through this with their home in Pine Beach. It sat on the market with another agency for 6 months and nothing. They called Rob because they knew they would have at least one offer on the table. Rob's team listed the home, and after a dozen showings and less than 45 days on the market, the home was successfully sold. Rob guarantees to sell your home at a price and a deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it. And there's no risk to you because he'll let you out of the contract anytime. Last year, Rob sold over 750 homes, yet when you list with him, you feel like you're his only client. So call Rob Dukansky today at 855-350-1015. That's 855-350-1015 or online at robsellsnj.com. robsellsnj.com. That's robsellsnj.com and start packing. Look for increasing clouds across New Jersey this afternoon. We stay quiet during the daytime hours with high temperatures in the mid-40s or so. Rain and snow showers arrive tonight. A brisk wind kicks up as well, and tomorrow just looks messy. Mix of snow and rain. The further north and west you are, the better your chance of seeing 3 to 6 inches of accumulation. Just an inch or two along the shore as we stay mostly rain. The peak of the storm from late morning tomorrow through the early evening hours. Wind gusts 30 to 40 plus miles an hour possible. Minor tidal flooding expected tomorrow as well. I'm meteorologist Dan Zero.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, it's Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Let me bow before the president. I'm going to go at 45 degrees. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Rubel is gracing our studios, the president of Town Square Media. It's an honor to work for you, sir. This portion of Hurley in the Morning presented, paid for by Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program for the past 27 years. In fact, he's the first advertiser in the history of this program. Chuck is the managing director. He leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. And to reach Chuck and his fine team for all of your financial planning needs. Some of the things we're going to be talking about today, for example, towards the end of Chuck's program, that it's never too early to start funding for college. And I think really with so many uncertainties, they used to be able to put this stuff in and kind of have an idea, 18, 20 years from now, what you could expect. I think that's very challenging in the environment that we see now. It's something that I think is a very important part of Chuck's program today that we'll be talking about again towards the end of the program. This program is presented by Chuck, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck Malamut and do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member, SIPC. Chuck Malamut, good to see you, my good friend.
Good morning, Harry.
And you have a very ambitious agenda for your program this morning.
So why don't we just get started? How's that sound?
Take it away.
So, Harry, as you know, we've continue to have a fair amount of volatility in the stock and the bond market, but mostly in the stock market. So if we take a look at sort of summarized last week, I mean, investors spent a lot of time focusing on the new Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's testimony in front of Congress, and he seemed to imply on more than one occasion that the Fed is going to be more aggressive with respect
to apply.
He's going to be more aggressive.
I'm sorry, I won't interrupt again.
He's going to be more aggressive about increasing interest rates. So he walked back some of the statements in the latter part of the week, but as you can well imagine, stocks ended up reacting very negatively to his initial comments. So then, at the end of the week, President Trump confirmed that speculation that he's going to announce tariffs on steel 25% and aluminum imports 10%, despite the objections of a lot of his policy advisors. And I think you're continuing to see a number of his advisors that are vehemently opposed to these tariffs. So for the week, the S&P was down 2%. The materials, industrial sectors were the worst, as you could well imagine, with respect to steel and aluminum. Treasury yields declined as investors were looking for safer havens. So as we walked in yesterday morning, the markets were down pre-market, triple digits, and all eyes back on Washington. You think about this for a second, Harry. We're pretty much through earnings, and I'll cover that in a minute. But what is happening here is that because there's not much to report, at least last week, Now we have a lot of economic reports coming this week. The market, grabs on to something. In this case, it was, what was coming out of Washington. But if you look at the markets, again, yesterday they were focusing on the potential of these tariffs announced by President Trump. But I think what the markets were pretty pleased to see is that the initial 25 and 10% steel and aluminum, respectively, might be a little bit much, and a lot of the Republicans, including Paul Ryan, publicly opposing the tariffs, citing potentially increased costs for U.S. consumers, potential trade retaliation, tariffs with Canada and Mexico, but you never want to try to outguess what the president is trying to accomplish. Because I think it's stage one in probably a fairly lengthy, negotiation. So,
Chuck, what do you think happened when the markets initially didn't like it a little bit, and there were two bad days? Now the markets seem to not be as fazed by it.
Well, I think the fact that a number of President Trump's advisors and Paul Ryan and the like are opposing this, so I think there's going to be a fair amount of pushback, and it's like anything else. And when you begin a negotiation session, whether you're buying or selling, your personal home or whatever, or business, you always shoot a lot higher than what you're going to, but think what you're going to potentially receive. And I think, Harry, that's what is potentially happening here. But President Trump, think about, when he came out yesterday, with Canada and Mexico with respect to NAFTA, is this a negotiation tool, as far as, what's happening with the two countries to the north and to the south of us. But when you look at earnings onto themselves, we're pretty much wrapped up the fourth quarter. The results have been encouraging, needless to say. Revenues beat by roughly 1.2%. Earnings were up by about 3.8%. So when you translate that, it actually equates to about a 7.6% year-over-year revenue growth and a 14% year-over-year earnings growth for the fourth quarter. So the quarter was certainly, one that goes down in the record books. And I think what is happening now in the markets, you're at the point in time where we have this. We're believe it or not, we're actually trading in a rather narrow trading range, Harry. But what is happening is you have this increased volatility on a day-to-day basis, which a lot of investors get very, very anxious with respect to what is happening out there. And I guess if you are looking to trade stocks on a short-term basis, then you could get whipsawed very easily. But conversely, on the flip side, if you are a long-term investor, you will find opportunities like we found last week, like we found the week before. So it's a matter of, do you trade or do you invest?
Yeah, and is it apparent? Is it apparent which way to go?
Well, if you take a look at let's talk about volatility for a second. This, I think, your listeners, are experiencing on a day-to-day and hourly basis. During the month of February, we had 14 trading days that resulted in at least a 1% total return gain or loss, up or down, and that mostly happened in the latter part of the month. So virtually every from the 10th of the month to the end of the month of February, every 3 days, 2 of those days, you had a move that was in excess of 1%. Now, kind of put that in perspective and work back a little bit. If you, prior to this, to get a movement of 14 trading days with a plus or minus move, we traded for 325 days to have 14 of those days where we had a movement of 1%, plus or minus. So, there was virtually no volatility for the latter part of 2016 and for, all of 2017 to speak of in the beginning of 2018. So now all of a sudden we are in a totally different environment where, the market is, you have that churn. It's like, I think, Harry, kind of similar to what's happening here, with our weather. You look at the ocean. I mean, you see that the water churning, and and a lot of it is happening underneath the current, and then it sort of rises to the top. And I think that's what has happened here in the equity markets, because during the month of February was the first time that we were down over the last 15 consecutive months, which. And I think it caught a lot of investors by surprise. And when you look at, is this in fact a correction in a long-term bull market, or is this the beginning of a bear market? We seem to think it's certainly the former, and it's not the latter at this point in time.
Very, very interesting. We're going to take our first break. Much more. That's just Chuck's opening salvo, the market update. There's so much here. The tariff, which Chuck did touch on, Fed and the interest rates hikes, which Chuck has touched on, and a whole lot more. Labor market, inflation, February payrolls, which my understanding is it's the highest employment that we've had in American history, lowest unemployment rate in American history if you want to look at it in the negative. Increased volatility, is it real? Is it there? Never too early to start funding for college. I think that's a most important topic that Chuck is going to raise, because so many people just wait. It's just a little baby. It's, we got plenty of time until you blink, and college is then, next year or next month. Also, we'll talk about household debt. Is it crippling? Is it a problem right now in America? More with Chuck Malamut right after this.
If you're a small business, first impressions can make all the difference. With Grasshopper, you get all the features of a professional business phone system on your mobile phone. Choose a business phone number, make calls and send texts, making it easy for you and your customers to stay connected. Even get voicemails transcribed. Set up your account in minutes with no long-term contracts and 24/7 customer support. Make your small business big. Now get $20 off your plan when you visit grasshopper.com/radio. That's grasshopper.com/radio.
Spearphishing has or will strike your business, wreaking havoc on your employees, brand, and your bottom line. Spearphishing can't be stopped by traditional email security solutions because messages appear to be legitimate from your boss, a trusted colleague, or a vendor asking you to wire money, confirm login credentials, or worse. Barracuda Sentinel is artificial intelligence for real-time spearphishing and cyber fraud defense. Reclaim your email in minutes with zero impact on network performance. Visit barracuda.com/AI.
This is a special notice to all U.S. taxpayers. If you owe the IRS or state back taxes and cannot afford to pay them back, there's good news. Due to the financial hardship many are facing in today's economy, the IRS has made it easier to settle delinquent tax problems through a federal program called the Fresh Start Initiative. Qualifying for this program will resolve your tax problem, end all collections, and possibly reduce your back taxes by up to 90%. If you are facing wage garnishments, liens, bank levies, audits, or payroll taxes, it's not too late. Your circumstances may qualify you for this special program, protecting your savings and your assets. If you owe the IRS or state back taxes and cannot afford to pay them back, there's no need to worry anymore. Call the hotline at Victory Tax Solutions to see if you qualify and potentially save thousands. For this free information, call 800-780-3232. 800-780-3232. That's 800-780-3232.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the mayor of the morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Chuck's mic is down just for the next 30 seconds. This is speculation. It is not learned. It is not confirmed. But there has been a story that I've been working on for a number of days now, many, many days, in fact. And I've kept my powder dry until right now. And Chuck has given me these 30 seconds to just share with you. Then I'll comment more about it in the few minutes after Chuck's program ends. Then we're going to go Dateline Atlantic City. Craig Calloway will be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. So under the heading speculation, you know when I say learned and confirmed, you take it to the bank, to the Malamut Bank. It's collecting interest. You know it. I've only taken that back one time in 27 years. And I had 3 major sources. And I don't make excuses, but I was shocked when I had to take that one back a decade and a half ago, whenever it was. And that was the news of the false news of Sister Jean Webster at the time. Speculation, not confirmed. However, multiple well-placed sources have advised me that longtime Egg Harbor Township Mayor James Sonny McCullough is nearing a decision to not seek re-election. He has been a committeeman or mayor since 1988. It also appears that fellow committeeman Frank Finnerty will follow along with whatever decision McCullough ultimately decides. And yet more speculation, should McCullough and or Finnerty decide to leave, former Atlanta County Sheriff Frank Ballas may jump in. Again, speculation, not learned, not confirmed. Chuck Malamut, time is yours.
So, Harry, why don't we spend a few minutes and go back to the tariff that was announced last week by President Trump.
Yep.
So the main worry for financial markets, as you can well imagine, is what sort of actions will be taken, certainly from a negative perspective, from other countries that could trigger, as the president said, a trade war. And he throws the words out there, and I think we have to be very, very concerned. And that's what happened at the latter part of the week with respect to the equity market. So, from an economic perspective, investors are also concerned that the tariffs could end up creating price increases for a variety of products, cars, construction materials, and ultimately consumer goods. So, is a tariff, Harry, a good thing? Is a tariff a bad thing? Is this,
Isn't it interesting how, depending on who you ask, I mean, this is one of those areas where if people are being intellectually honest, you could have significant disagreement, and it crosses, honest party lines and honest ideology. President Bush, and that would be George W. Bush, not George H.W. Bush. President Bush instituted steel tariffs. He did it.
He did, and as you
nobody's saying that.
But as you remember,
it was considered a bad result.
Yeah, and they had to walk that back.
Yeah, Chuck, my position is this: I love my president. My personal feelings, for him. I don't like this. I don't like it. That's my position is putting 25% on steel, 10% on aluminum. It invites a trade war, and I know he has made the pronouncement that trade wars are easy to win. History shows they're messy and they're not easy to win.
Ultimately, Harry, I think it's going to have a negative impact on the economy. And if you think about, the number of jobs that it impacts, no disrespect to steel and steel manufacturers, but it's a very, very small percentage of workers. Maybe, right. I think 80,000, 100, maybe 120,000 workers, throughout the country that are impacted. Yeah,
but let me push back on it for a second, because I'm against it. But I did look at the numbers too. Evidently, if you take an average new automobile, it would put $74 on the price tag of a new automobile. Whose job is that costing? What is this? It's just, we're not, I know a penny can mean a lot if you're talking about billions of pennies and beyond, but my understanding is that literally, even on some of these, the Boeing purchase for the 2 new Air Force One crafts, we're talking about like a few tens of thousands of dollars on the price tag. Where are all these jobs getting lost for something that is pennies?
I think again it's much too early, because we don't know, one, if it's going to happen and to what magnitude, if it does happen. But I think what was very interesting, Harry, the other day on I guess it was Thursday when this was initially announced by the president, virtually all sectors, traded lower during the day and for the week. The only exception on Thursday were steel stocks. They traded positive on Thursday, but Harry, as you got into Friday, the opposite happened. They gave back the gains. So I think what is happening now, it's, the market is digesting what was said, how it was said, what is the likelihood that this in fact will happen, and when in fact will it happen. So, again, I think from a trader's perspective, you have to be very, very cautious because, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of volatility in the market. The tariff announcement, it creates more volatility. So, you sort of need to step aside if you're trying to trade the market. But if you're an investor, I think it provides opportunity when things get sold, when markets sell off, when things get beaten up. If there's a position out there that you like, a sector, an individual stock within the sector, you sort of have to keep your eyes on it, and ultimately, it gives you, I think, opportunities to buy at lower prices than maybe you were initially looking at.
Great analysis, Chuck. I mean, I'm not surprised. You're the best in the business, in my view. I want to go back to the Fed and the interest rate hikes. I know you touched on it in your opening monologue when you do your quick, sort of opening market update. But I have a theory, and again, you might not support my theory, but you know where I'm going.
I heard your theory as recently as in the 6 a.m. hour.
And then I said I would save it for you. But I think I can prove that for over a generation or more, if a Republican is in the White House or a Democrat is in the White House, the Fed is consistent. And I always give credit for consistency, but this appears to be, unfair how they do it. Republicans seem to get a very hard way to go and get placed in the meat grinder of interest rate hike environment, and the opposite true for the other side. Now, one could say, Harry, that's technically true, but you have to observe the actual circumstances of those particular times, which I also think I've done. I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with this. We were supposed to be in a rate hike environment with the previous president, but they would never pull the trigger. There'd be one bad hiccup, one tiny sniffles, one little boogie would come out of somebody's nose, and then they would not do the rate increase. So is there anything to what I'm saying, or do you think I'm being partisan?
Harry, I think you're being partisan. You and I have known each other a long time, and I will disagree with you on this one particular.
So there's absolutely nothing to what I'm saying.
I don't want to say there's nothing to what you're saying, but I think that what the Fed in this case is looking at is what is happening with the economy. So, Chairman Powell last week again indicated potentially 4 hikes. He looked at the strength of the U.S. economy, the data.
He dismissed me. Then he said the chair is confirming 4 hikes. Okay, Chuck.
So
I got to give you credit. You say it with a straight face.
So
I love you.
4 potential hikes in 2018. The confidence that inflation is firming, and the overall favorable global economic backdrop. And I think what oftentimes gets lost in the equation here, Harry, is not so much what happens domestically, but what is happening overseas. And as you know, Italy had an election, and everyone kind of got spooked at what would potentially happen, and the market shrugged it off. So Chairman Powell again noted he reduction of the Fed's balance sheet, gradually increasing short-term interest rates, and initially or before the discussion that he had in front of Congress, the thought process was 3 rate hikes in 2018. So now that it's been sort of thrown out there that they're looking at potentially 4, but I think a lot of that, Harry, is dependent upon the data that comes across.
If that, and I want to believe that, because if something were to change and they didn't do it, then I would take back what I said. but I go back all the way. This show goes all the way back to George H.W. Bush. We had a growing economy at 4.6% GDP. They called it the worst economy in 50 years, and the Fed chair stuck it to them the entire re-election year with rate increase after rate increase. Bill Clinton got treated very differently. George W. Bush got hit with the rate increase environment. Barack Obama, no rate increases, even though they said we were in a rate increase environment. And then you just said 4 rate increases the Fed chair has confirmed. How can what I said not at least be suspicious?
Suspicious, but I won't take it to the bank.
All right.
How's that go?
I like your style. I like your moxie. I'm going to take it to the bank because I believe it. He is Chuck Malamut, the best in the business. To reach the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, simply dial 609-383-2010. We're going to take a brief time out. We will be back in just 2 minutes. Don't go away.
WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is South Jersey's home for over 24 of the most listened to talk shows in our area. And up until recently, to participate, you had to listen for 24 different phone numbers.
407-1450.
800-941-SEAN.
But not anymore. Download the WPG Talk Radio app and tap on Call Us to automatically call the talk show that you're listening to. Get the new WPG Talk Radio app at WPGTalkRadio.com.
Hey there, it's Reese.
And Irvy.
From the franchise concept, Reese and Irvy's. Our patented frozen yogurt vending robots serve 7 flavors of delicious frozen yogurt.
We're officially labeled one of the hottest franchise opportunities of 2018, and you could own one.
No employees, no rent, just fully automated robots that work for you and deliver instant customer satisfaction.
Find openings in your area at froyofranchising.com and enter promo code 7878. That's froyofranchising.com, promo code 7878.
SaaS, or Software as a Service-based solutions like Salesforce, Office 365, and Zoom make your business incredibly productive. But more than 30% of the SaaS licenses you're paying for go unused, and that's incredibly expensive. So we created MetaSaaS, the leading SaaS management tool designed to proactively identify cloud software that your company's paying for but not using. For proof that we can help you find huge savings, go to metasaas.com. That's metasaas.com.
Snoring. It's not funny, and it's definitely not normal. It's actually a sign that you're not breathing properly while you sleep. And you're probably ruining your partner's sleep as well. If you have a blocked or narrow nose, then you're more likely to open your mouth to breathe, resulting in the loud, noisy sounds of snoring. But now, thanks to an Australian innovation called Mute, the answer to your snoring problem may be right under your nose. Mute is an easy-to-use and comfortable nasal dilator that sits inside the nose and supports your airway, keeping it open while you sleep. It helps you breathe more easily through your nose, so you can keep your mouth closed. In trials, 75% of couples reported a reduction in snoring when using Mute, allowing them both to enjoy a better night's sleep. Mute is available now at Walgreens, GNC, or your local drugstore. Find your nearest store at mutesnoring.com. Mute. Breathe more, snore less, sleep better.
Hey, wake up with Harry Hurley and drive home with me, Sean Hannity, 3 to 6. It's all happening here on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Hey, thanks very much. We're back. Chuck Malamut continues. It's 33 minutes past the hour. Chuck will be here for one more power segment. We have a few things we want to share with you in the last few minutes of the hour. Craig Calloway is going to join us, State Line Atlantic City, in the 9 o'clock hour, and let the record reflect that everything we have been reporting for weeks now, weeks and weeks and weeks, it has all officially come true, even though we were called a misrepresenter of the truth, even though it was a much harsher word than that. Everything that we told you, we promised you was going to be happening has happened. Chuck, are we going to do more in terms of the labor market and inflation?
Yeah, so let's just chat for a minute about labor. Last week, initial jobless claims fell by 10,000 to 210,000. So that's the lowest level that we've seen since December 1969. How old were you then, Harry?
9. It's easy for me. I was born in 60.
You think about it, and you're 72 now?
Oh, you're funny. 50,
oh, no, my math isn't right. I'm sorry.
A few months away from 58, 57.
So think about how many decades have passed, and fact of the matter is that here's really what's significant about the number. Think about our population, where we stood, 60 years ago, or 50 years ago, and think about where the population is now. So the numerator, at that 210,000 versus the denominator is certainly a lot higher now than it was, 50 years ago. So I think that's, obviously a big move, showing how tight the labor market is. And as a result of that, potentially, higher wage growth or higher wages, which ultimately results in higher inflation. And Harry, I read in a number of places over the last several days that a lot of companies are relaxing their policies with respect to hiring new employees. You think about if you fail, if you fail a drug test, for the most part, you're not going to be considered for employment. And now I think what is happening, because the job market is so tight, a lot of companies are a little more lenient on on potentially hiring people.
Chuck, even the military is reducing the standard because there's such a basically built-in declination rate right now between obesity, minor marijuana type use charges, and things like that. So it is interesting how the standards have to be relaxed in order to meet, we'll call it, your quotas.
So, Harry, that bodes well for college graduates. Mm-hmm. You think about where we were 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, how challenging it was to seek and gain employment. And I remember you were always chatting about, I guess, Farrah Fawcett's poster in the basement of their parents.
You do love me. You are a listener. Chuck, that's one of my favorite expressions. The people, adult children living in their basement with their Farrah Fawcett.
Harry,
hey, Jim.
What did you always say? Like we're brothers from a different mother.
Yeah. Oh,
so
God.
I know what makes you tick.
Feel so good.
But what I want to go back to this college. The college students that now, when they graduate, whether it's undergrad or grad school, that they have potential opportunities, not just from one employer, but from multiple employers. And one of the things that we're going to chat about today is the cost of college education, because we oftentimes moan and groan about how expensive it is, and that we're not prepared, and we haven't done our due diligence to save. Now, that's whether it's a parent or a grandparent or another relative or a friend. But let's kind of roll back the clock here for a second. Let's look at a child that was born 22 years ago, March 1996. They would have started college in the fall of 2014. And they would be scheduled to graduate, this coming May 2018. If the parents, the grandparents, the relatives, the friends, if they had invested $135 a month, Harry, starting when the child was born in 1996 and achieved an 8% annual return, the parents would have been able to pay for a 4-year college with expenses of tuition, fees, room, and board of a college of a state school that has a 4-year cost of about $80,000. So now, what the calculation doesn't take into effect is taxes on the investment when they withdraw. But again, if you made these investments within a 529 account, then you pay no taxes on the back end. But think about this for a second. Now, how much is $135 a month, to most of your listeners?
Something they can typically afford.
I would think so. I would hope so. And because oftentimes, and as I think you alluded to earlier this morning, was the fact that you say, well, I'll take care of it tomorrow, or I'll take care of it next week, or I'll do it next month, or I'll do it next year. And all of a sudden, you turn around and you look at your children or your grandchildren, and you say, where has the last 20 years gone? And something that was very, very achievable is now a monumental task. And ultimately, if you have not saved the money, you cannot afford to pay for college. I mean, the student is not shut out, but as you know, they have to borrow, and the cost of borrowing ultimately is not cheap.
What do you attribute? I mean, it's tough to, because you're not a psychologist or anything or psychoanalyst, but what is it that people don't do that when it's so manageable? And then, of course, the reason it's so manageable is because it's growing over the time where the baby is, in diapers and then a toddler and then in grade school and then ultimately middle school and high school, and then by the time you go, and then, of course, it's still growing while you use some of it in the freshman year, sophomore year, and so on. Why don't more people do it?
I think, Harry, might be a number of things. One, of potential affordability. While $136 or $135 a month doesn't seem like it's a lot for most of your listeners, I mean, for some it's a stretch. If you are, if you're living from paycheck to paycheck, then it becomes it becomes more of a challenge. But I think ultimately it's just procrastination. I mean, you think you have all this time. It's just I'll do it. I'll do it later. It's perfect case in point. Taxes are due April 15th. But you can take an extension. You pay if you pay your potential tax liability, the government's okay with that. But you just say, well, I'll file my taxes later. So any of a number of reasons, but I think a lot of it is is procrastination and affordability. And I'm not sure, Harry, in what particular order that goes.
Yeah, I just find it very interesting that when it's manageable, more people don't do it. Then what happens, look at this, Chuck, we know this happens. People that either can't or don't attend to it when it's manageable wind up applying for Parent Plus loans, or it's saddled on the student themselves with the student loans. Hence, we have this $1 trillion+ public education finance crisis.
Yeah, and I think you need a Social Security number to obviously open a 529 or a custodial account, and as you get that number as you exit the hospital. I mean, it's one of the first things that is provided to you. Your child, you get a Social Security number, and I remember personally, and this goes back 23 years ago when our son was born, and my wife said, where are you going? I said, well, I mean, I'm going to the office to open, at that point in time, a custodial account, and began to fund it, every month with payroll deduction. And she thought I was absolutely crazy, but as a result of that, it created less stress on the back end when our children went to college. So I think that all of us want to take care of our kids and our grandchildren. So I think, and it's a very simple process to open these accounts, Harry, and it's even easier to potentially do the calculations to understand what the potential funding is. What we do with our clients and prospective clients, we oftentimes, a client that lives in New Jersey or the child lives in New Jersey, we'll look at a state school. We'll look at a Rutgers, for instance. We'll look at a Stockton State College, and then we'll use that sort of as a baseline, and then we'll maybe stretch. Okay, look at an average private school, look at an Ivy League school, look at an out-of-state, look at a in-state school, but you're an out-of-state resident.
So you take a look at the people you're sitting down with, your clients. You take a look at what their goals and objectives are.
Yeah, and you say, look, if
Ivy League, that's a different calculation.
Ivy League, $60,000 a year today.
Are you factoring in, Chuck? Because I think maybe you and I both agree on this. There are exceptions to this, but the education trap right now, I think it's a racket. You have these things like Stockton University is doing where you don't pay for an individual class. If you need one more class, you got to take like a boatload of classes. They got the game right now, I think, is cruel for parents and for students. And I believe that the system is rigged where almost everybody I know now, it takes 5 years. and not
it,
4.
It does take 5, and we do, in fact, account for that on occasion,
Good.
depending upon what.
I think everybody listening should say that to their financial advisor when you sit down with Chuck, and he's going to know it anyhow. But that is something like if somebody is sitting down thinking, "Hey, we're going to make this plan for 4 years," that's not working now. You have to believe it's not going to be working then.
Yeah, I mean, Harry, very, very good point. And off the power of the program that we use, you can look at different colleges or universities for your undergrad versus your grad school work. But I think what's really important is to just get started, and then once you're started, is to maintain. And and what we typically do,
and resist from dipping into it. You
Yeah,
gotta
well,
treat it like you can't touch it.
look, if you open a 529 account,
There you go.
you really can't get to
Right.
you can get to the money, but
you're
you're
gonna
going to pay taxes on the growth, and depending upon your age, you could very well pay a penalty tax as well. So I think you have to treat that as if that's money that's going to be used specifically for higher education. And the parent or the grandparent is not going to invade that capital unless they absolutely have to.
And if somebody listening right now, oh my gosh, their child's 8 years old or 10 years old, get it going anyhow.
I think your listeners will be really surprised to see, even if you have a 10-year runway, so to speak, it's not going to be that difficult to achieve getting that money set aside for education.
Closing comments?
Well, why don't we move on, because we're not quite finished
Yeah,
yet. I mean,
keep going.
I know that you have a lot going on
we're
here.
We're good.
So let's talk about February payroll for a second.
Yep.
So, that's coming at the end of the week. So the consensus estimates is the payrolls climbed by about 180,000 or higher during the month of February, and that the unemployment rate is going to be at 4%. So, in addition, average hourly earnings are going to likely increase by 0.3%, keeping the year-over-year increase just short of 3% at 2.9%. So as a result of that, as I mentioned before, there's always that concern now about inflation. That's something I think we have to keep our mind on, and we'll get that report as we get to the end of the year. Now, ultimately, household debt. We talked about, I think, last week. Household net worth, but this is a little discouraging, and I don't want to be like Debbie Downer here and leaving the program on a low note, so to speak. But average or aggregate household debt in our country reached $13.15 trillion as of the end of last year. Wow. It's the highest level that has ever been recorded. Household debt has now increased for 14 consecutive quarters. Not months, but quarters. So kind of put that in perspective.
So people are borrowing to exist?
Yes. And
this is credit cards, this is second mortgages.
It's all debt.
Everything.
It's household debt. I mean, anything, you're right. So I think that's something that we have to all, be conscious of when you are individually planning for your prospective retirement. It's so easy now to get a loan comparatively. Forget a mortgage for a second.
Yeah.
But, your traditional credit cards, it's a lot easier. Think about, when we were living through the Great Recession, you wouldn't get any mail from a credit card company. True. Advertising the potential availability to borrow.
They were cutting people's lines. They were closing accounts. I mean, and now it's gone in the opposite.
So now we are back where you are getting multiple solicitations in the mail on a daily basis.
A lot of peer-to-peer loan opportunities too.
So I think, Harry, it's just something that I think your listeners need to be aware of as we get into the latter part of this year. So all said and done, we are still very optimistic with respect to the equity markets. It's going to continue that churn, that choppiness is still going to be out there. But again, from a long-term perspective, I think it provides opportunity. And and I think your listeners need to be made aware of that.
Chuck, outstanding appearance, but we expect no less from you. You're the best. Thank you, sir.
Harry, thanks. We'll see you next week.
Look forward to it, Chuck. For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck Malamut, leader of the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010. One sit down with Chuck, you'll understand his perfected concept of total asset management, coupled with the all-important asset allocation. He really does take the time to get to know you, to understand your goals, your ambitions, your dreams, and no accident that Chuck is a member of two coveted clubs. He is on the annual Barron's, the Dow Jones Industrial Business and Financial Weekly publication, on their power list of America's top 1,200 financial advisors. And as we've been saying for several weeks now, Chuck also made the coveted Forbes magazine, what they call member of Forbes Best Wealth Advisors. They select 2,000 in America. Chuck is number 25 in the state of New Jersey. And very impressive, very rarefied accomplishments on both accounts. This portion of Early in the Morning brought to us in part by ANS Construction. Let me tell you what they do. Simply put, there's no mystery to it at all. They fill potholes correctly. They patch, they seal coat, they line stripe. That's what they do. They do complete overlays. So we're not burying the lead. That's what they do. They fix parking lots. And everybody this time of year. Strip malls, schools, municipalities, everywhere that many people, large residencies that don't pour concrete and have blacktop in large areas. ANS Construction, they're different from the others, how they do their patches. They never just fill the hole. They meticulously cut out a nice straight square and either remove the asphalt down to the stone base or they cut a keyway to give the asphalt patch a firm hold. Using either method, ANS Construction and their patches are meant to last the lifetime of the parking lot surface. ANS Construction stands behind their Seal Coat product as well. They only use Seal Master Ultra, designed for professional applications. The longevity of this product installation is impressive. ANS has returned to jobs that they've done 5 years ago, and the seal coating looks as black as it did the day it was applied. Line striping is done with only the top-of-the-line paint machine, using only Sherwin-Williams line striping paint. ANS Construction will work with budgets both large and small. And hear me clear on that, because that's very important. If your parking lot is in bad shape and you don't want to at this time, or you can't afford at this time to spend the money on a full overlay, ANS Construction can help. Here's a real-life example. They saved at ANS Construction, one of their clients, $90,000 by patching and sealing versus a full overlay, and the client was very, very happy with the result. Other contractors said it couldn't be done, that you could only do a full overlay. Call ANS Construction. You may get Adam. You may get some of the other team members. In any event, please tell them that I, Early in the Morning, sent you. 609-646-0023, 609-646-0023. That's ANS Construction, 609-246-0023. So ANS Construction can save your parking lot, and here at Harbor Pines, coming up the day after tomorrow, this Thursday, which is March 8th, believe it or not, the month of March is flying already, you can give the gift of life. You can actually save a life, because 1 pint of blood, which is what you'll give, saves 3 lives. So this is an opportunity for you to not only give and to help, but also to receive, because you will be rewarded with a gift certificate for a complimentary greens fee. This Thursday, March 8th, 10 a.m. to 2:45 p.m., simple to reserve. You can make a local phone call, 609-927-0006, extension 13, or email your appointment request to Blaine@harborpines.com, BLANE, Blaine@harborpines.com. 500 St. Andrews Drive in Egg Harbor Township. The annual Harbor Pines Blood Drive. 1 pint of your blood will save 3 lives. This Thursday, March 8th. Tell them I sent you Early in the Morning.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff is brought to you by Integrity Physical Therapy and Wellness and Dr. Stuart Honig of Go Feet Podiatry.
While technology has made our lives easier, it is also making us more sedentary. James Levin is the inventor of the treadmill desk and has done extensive research on a sedentary lifestyle. He says sitting is more dangerous than smoking, kills more people than HIV, and is more treacherous than parachuting. We are sitting ourselves to death. Levin is credited with coining the new phrase, sitting is the new smoking. Sitting for long periods of time can increase the risk factors for type 2 diabetes, heart disease, increased waist size, and excessive abdominal fat. If you sit all day, get up periodically, take the stairs, park your car further from the door. Just get off your seat and move your body. Aim for at least 30 minutes of activity most days of the week. I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff is brought to you by Integrity Physical Therapy. Put yourself in their hands and Go Feet Podiatry. Your feet will thank you.
Hey kids, remind your parents that Kiddabaloo is only 4 days away. Kiddabaloo is this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Tickets are just $15 and that includes every activity under Boardwalk Hall's roof. No extra charges. Bounce houses, remote control race cars, laser tag, superheroes, princesses, and more. With shorter lines and a new spread out layout this year. Easy in and out $5 parking at Boardwalk Hall. Kiddabaloo is 4 days away this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall. Tickets are just $15 at Ticketmaster.com.
If you're a small business, first impressions can make all the difference. With Grasshopper, you get all the features of a professional business phone system on your mobile phone. Choose a business phone number, make calls and send texts, making it easy for you and your customers to stay connected. Even get voicemails transcribed. Set up your account in minutes with no long-term contracts and 24/7 customer support. Make your small business big. Now get $20 off your plan when you visit grasshopper.com/radio. That's grasshopper.com/radio.
Spearphishing has or will strike your business, wreaking havoc on your employees, brand, and your bottom line. Spearphishing can't be stopped by traditional email security solutions because messages appear to be legitimate from your boss, a trusted colleague, or a vendor asking you to wire money, confirm login credentials, or worse. Barracuda Sentinel is artificial intelligence for real-time spearphishing and cyber fraud defense. Reclaim your email in minutes with zero impact on network performance. Visit barracuda.com/AI.
Do you owe the IRS more than $10,000 in taxes? The government now has tax debt relief programs in place, and you have rights. Call tax representation today. Join satisfied clients like Victoria.
I owe the IRS $32,000. They accepted $300.
She saved $31,700. Leroy owed $21,000.
The IRS accepted $500, and I saved $20,500.
Results may vary, but tax representation can help you. Has the IRS threatened to freeze your bank accounts, take your home, your cars, and garnish your wage? You don't have to fear the IRS any longer if you call tax representation. We are the industry experts with negotiating with the IRS, and one of the very few that has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. We'll contact the IRS the same day, putting a stop to bank levies and wage garnishments. Call the tax representation hotline at 800-295-1018. Call 800-295-1018 today. That's 800-295-1018.
Hi, it's Brian Kilmeade. Join me next at 10, then Sean Hannity at 3. Now back to Harry Hurley on WPG Talk Radio, 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
2 minutes before the top of the hour. When we come back, Dateline Atlantic City, we're going to tell you everything that you need to know about what is really going on. Now, if you've been with us, you've got a head start on everybody because there is finally undeniable, incontrovertible results that even the crooked local media can no longer say that it's not happening. It's been crazy. It's been crazy what's been going on. And I'm not complaining because I love it. I love it when we're in our own lane and, we have an exclusive and for some reason either people are lying about what's going on or they're intentionally, how I talk to you about there's acts of omission and acts of commission. Sometimes the act of omission is more insidious than an act of commission. When you actually commit something and you purposefully propagate something that's completely, erroneous, that's one thing. But when there is something that's legitimately newsworthy and you spike it, and then even worse, you run cushy, this is almost like deja vu, cushy just baloney So not only will you not cover the truth, but you're doing propaganda. You might as well be TASS at that point. Well, they finally had to step up now because there's no way, if you kick everybody out and you do criminal referrals, there's no way to say it's not happening anymore. Although I will say Frank Gilliam said it did, that this was already over. I know him, and I know he doesn't possibly believe that because he recently said that he believes the feds are going to be knocking on his door. So just by that definition alone, it can't be over if you admit it's not over. Just because you say it's over doesn't make it over. A lot of details to share with you next. Fourth quarter begins right now. It's Hurley in the Morning.
WPGG Atlantic City, WENJ 97.3 HD3 Millville. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
It would let some teachers be armed at school. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. A bill Florida's state Senate has approved would raise the minimum age to buy rifles to 21, and there would be also a 3-day waiting period.
We need layers and layers and layers of security measures in these schools to make them safe.
Lori Al-Hadef's daughter was one of the 17 students and adults murdered in the Parkland shooting spree, and nearly 3 weeks after the first lawsuit. Fox's Evan Brown